Welcome to the Joyful Mate podcast. Join your joyful journey mentor, Anthony Hartcher, as we explore the path to inner joy and fulfillment. Each episode we dive into the science of happiness, share personal insights, and invite you to be part of this interactive book writing adventure. You'll hear from experts in the field of joy, happiness, and fulfillment who will share their wisdom and experiences. Let's embark on this journey together. Let's make happiness part of your everyday. Welcome on the Joyful Mate podcast. How are you, Michael Wark?
I'm good. I'm very good. Excited to be here.
So great to have you on. Really looking forward to this conversation. And before we get started, I would love you to share your backstory as to how you have arrived at what you're doing today so that listeners can get up to speed.
I guess the high level cliff notes is that I'm a corporate escapee. So started the career as an auditor at Ernst & Young and worked in kind of the big end of town for the first 10 years of my career. And then for the last 10, I've been helping small businesses as a fractional CFO. So I'm a trained accountant, but I kind of pursued the smaller path or the smaller business path because it gave me a lot more purpose, a lot more freedom, and I feel like I'm making a bigger impact. I guess I was kind of trying to find what works for me, square peg, round hole in the corporate world, and have discovered this path and running my own business is the best possible way for me to balance everything I want out of my life. So yeah, that's kind of my very high level summary.
How did you come to that realization? Was it a path that you sort of did by trial and error, or like how did you find that sort of this is me, this is what I'm here for?
It's a constant evolution. I think you struggle with that for years. It's not like it was a light bulb moment. I realized early on when I was first at EY, I'd look at the partners who were supposed to be the pinnacles of success, right? They're the head of the pyramid. They're the ones earning the highest charge out rate. They've got the car parks down in the garage, driving the Porsches. So they're the ones I'm supposed to look up to. But, I looked at a bunch of them. There was some very lovely partners there, mind you, but I looked at some of them and they were workaholics. They were onto their second or third wives. Didn't look like success as I defined it, or what I thought was something worth working bloody hard for. And you've got to work hard to get there. So I realized very early on that this isn't a path that I want to be on because it doesn't look like the end goal lines up with where I want to be in life. So I very quickly tried to work out how I could use my accounting tools, but also get fulfillment in other ways. So, worked in the more creative fields after that, worked at film production companies and worked in London at a big production company there using my finance skills, but got to access a more creative world, which was awesome. It was my passport to kind of walking in the door of those places. And I guess that also has led to me now working a lot with agencies, digital agencies as a CFO. And I still kind of am tapping into that more creative world while still having the finance skills. It's been a constant evolution of years to be honest. There wasn't one, light bulb moment.
And so what are those things that bring you daily fulfillment that you call upon, to really make you feel like this is a good life? What is that for you?
For me, it's about balance. The career is one aspect of it, but it's about having a balanced life. So like practically speaking, if I'm in the ocean in the morning, that is a win and I'm happy. I'm very much, that is my happy place. So surfing or running or kind of being out near the ocean is a huge bonus for me. And I kind of structure my life so I run my own business so I can live closer to it and I don't have to be in the city every day. So it was very much by design that I've ended here. And then being productive, feeling like I'm helping my clients as well. So, that's why I want to work with smaller businesses because you have a direct one-to-one relationship with the founder. You hear their struggles, but then you also get to share in the successes as well. So feeling like I'm making an impact with the time I'm spending on the planet. And then also having time for family. And I've got a beautiful wife and we've got a baby daughter now. So having time to spend with them and watch her grow up and, learn to be a parent with my wife is also a big current source of joy for me.
Yeah, I can certainly see why EY wasn't a great fit when you when you mentioned the word balance. I was thinking, yeah, you picked that very quickly that those partners that have perceived success certainly had a life well out of balance. Was it?
Yeah, they've got the
Yeah.
material success, but it
Yeah.
depends. Everyone's got their own measuring stick about what success is.
Absolutely, and it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't your vision of a successful life. You certainly, looking at that more balance where you're doing what you enjoy doing and making impact with small businesses, but at the same time you're raising a young family, and
Mm.
obviously relationships are probably important value for you,
Mm.
and seeing that those partners are on their third or fourth, you're thinking, that's not the path I want.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a lot of even now in entrepreneurial circles. Now I run my own business. There's still these titans of the industry, like people constantly referring to Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, and you're like, yeah, but their personal lives were also a mess. You know, Elon's got 11 kids or 12 kids with different people. So, like, how good of a dad is he being, really? And Steve Jobs, I know, was very hard to deal with by all accounts. So it's like, for me, it's about balance, all of the areas, and that is success rather than being all in on one area and you just leave a trail of destruction in the other areas.
Yeah. So, what are the areas that are really, you've touched on a few in terms of important areas of your life. Are there any other areas that are really important to you in terms of, where you want to balance your time and energy?
It's been upended now. We've got a 6-month-old baby at home, so it's very much tipped in that now. So this is very time specific. We're chatting about this, but if I look at holistically over maybe the past decade, having time to stay fit and healthy is super critical for me. Like my mood is connected to my movement, and like if I'm not moving, you can get funky pretty quickly. So I always need to be doing that a few times a week just to stay sane. Otherwise I go get cabin fever. So doing that and spending time on health is really important. And I'm at a surf club up here on the northern beaches, and I see people in my surf club who are 70, 80, still fit, still out, still active, still doing it, and they're an inspiration to me. I'm like, that's my path now is longevity and kind of making sure I can use my body throughout the rest of my life. So things like that is a priority as well. But the main one now is work and family. Those are the two buckets that I'm juggling mainly at the moment. The time with the mates has definitely been turned down. Now we're all at a different chapter of life.
Absolutely. Our values and what's important to us will vary as we go through I guess, life phases. Like
Mm,
you're in a new life phase now where it's,
yeah.
yeah. So you devote more time to the new member of the family, and
Mm,
you're helping, support your partner in bringing them up in the best possible way, at the same time maintaining your fitness, which just inadvertently means that there's going to be less time to do other things, as you said, and
yeah.
the mates are suffering a bit, but you'll still get some mate time in there.
Yeah. I had a good run. So no, we can still catch up occasionally, and it's great. But we're all in that different season of life, I guess, at the moment. So it's just how it is.
And so, how do you provide the boundaries to focus on the priorities and what's important to you? What are some of the things you put in place to make sure that happens, that you are spending time with the little one and your partner, and making sure you're delivering impact on your customers?
It's a juggle, constant juggle. When work is busy, sometimes I have to spend more time. But in general, what I do is do all my external calls on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I have Monday and Friday blocked out for deep internal work, which gives me a really set start and end time. And I can schedule in, if my wife needs to go out and go to Pilates, I can be like, yep, I'll be there at 5 p.m. and I'll work from home that day and I can look after it. So I'm really blessed that I've got that flexibility in my schedule to define when I'm doing externals and also make the time for the family. So I'm really lucky. It's by design. It's why I run my business, is to have that flexibility. But little things like that really, really help to be able to do that. And it's pros and cons. Going away is a bit harder when you run your own business. There's challenges with scheduling and that. And I've got a team of a couple of people that help me with the back office stuff. But so it's a balance, I guess, is the short answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any things that you know today that thought brought fulfillment, but you know that they're a myth now, or that they're total bullshit? So,
I'm sure this answer changes depending on which year you'd ask me. I mean, it's an old trope, but everyone talks about how the material success doesn't bring you lasting happiness. And I guess I'm very cognizant of that. The further you go through life, the more things you accumulate, especially with like purchasing decisions, how there's an initial dopamine hit, but then you trail off. And I remember someone asked me a few years back, what did you get on Christmas Day one year? They're like, what did you get for Christmas last year? And I couldn't remember, because like that stuff really doesn't bring you a lasting source. It's a little dopamine sugar hit. So the material stuff probably is the one, with enough years under your belt, you realize those things you desire or needed to have 2 years later, gathering dust. So that's probably the big one, is just defining what enough is and being able to say no.
Yeah, it's so very true. And it goes back to that saying that you come into the world with nothing, you leave the world with nothing. So it's all about the adventure you have whilst you're here, as opposed to what you accumulate, because you're only really borrowing it, aren't you? Whilst you're in a physical, human, living your human experience.
Definitely. And there is that baseline though, like I'm excited to help my clients build successful businesses, hopefully find an exit and get that money that hopefully they want, and they can use it to travel or buy a house or whatever. But it's defining what enough is there, and being okay with that. It's the endless pursuit of more and constantly leveling up your expectations, I think, that's kind of the trap. That's the thing that you got to be really careful of.
And we didn't touch on this at the start, but it sort of popped back into my head when you mentioned, when you're looking up to these EI, weren't looking up to them. You're probably in the end sort of thinking, no, I don't want to be like them. But
yeah,
what's that success look like for you
now? Do you mean in terms of my career?
Just life success. Like initially at the start of your career, it was okay. If this is, you can answer in a career perspective, but I think with your balanced, holistic view of life, how about looking back in the, so let's teleport into your 70s and 80s, and we're looking back on your life. What would you like to say about your life?
I think now I'm a parent, that I was present there for my kids is going to be a critical one. I was really blessed to have parents who were around and who got on and are still together, and I realized that's just a blessing in itself. And I'd love to give that same gift to my kids, of being a parent who's around, who's engaged in their life, who cares. So that will be a key one, I think, and that's a big part of, I think, a lot of humans' legacies is making sure their kids don't hate them when they grow up and they do an all right job. And obviously I'll fail at many things with them, but yeah, that will be a really critical, I think, KPI. Working hard enough to feel like I had a crack in my career as well, and helping people and feeling like I really gave it a good shake, whilst not being a workaholic. And that's probably the biggest thing I wrestle with, was how many hours can you throw at it, or how hard do you want to go? And the more you mix up with entrepreneurs, the more you start to set these revenue goals or things like that. And then you have to wind it back and be like, why? But why am I doing that? Is a big team good for my ego, or do I really want that? So finding some sort of balance in the work business I'm building with something that I'm happy and proud of. And then having a body that's still in shape that I can use to go do fun things, and still get out and about in the environment and enjoy that aspect of life, which I always have. So those are probably the main ones, I reckon.
It's fantastic, and it really, you can see why you're on the right trajectory or the right course, because that initial career start, I could see how it was just so misaligned with who you are based on what you've just shared, and the life you want to live.
For sure. And I don't want to throw shade on EY and those consulting firms. Like, they also work hard, and I'm sure they do a lot of good, but it is true when you walk in the door of those places. These people at the top of the totem pole have the status, they've got the nice office, they've got all those things that, as a fresh out of uni kid, you're like, whoa, they're the powerful people. So sometimes you kind of, it's all smoke and mirrors. You don't realize what you got to do to get between here and there.
And you can tell that you're living a life very much that's aligned to your values and what's important to you, and you're in that good space that very much that topped up glass, half full as opposed to half empty. Yeah,
for sure. And I think now that I think back on why I did that, or why I kind of thought that way, a lot of it was to do with traveling. So I always loved traveling, and I got out and about, and I traveled to South America for months and months before I started this job, and tried to get a bit of perspective. And you go and see different cultures and different socioeconomic places. And, we live in a very privileged bubble in Australia. Like, if you're born in Australia, you are bloody lucky to be here. And you have to go travel to understand that. And so to see that other people in other cultures are happy doing completely different things that we would think are successful helped, I think, maybe give me a little bit of perspective. And that's probably something I'll try and force my kids, kick them out the door and go see the world, because it'll help you, give you a much bigger basis for your decision making about what success is.
100%, and that bigger basis for appreciation too. Like, I remember through my travels just coming back and appreciating a toilet seat and the clean toilet, like things that we just take for granted. Like,
absolutely. Clean water running out of a tap you can drink.
Yes, yeah. Clean air and all this stuff that we just have growing up, and we don't appreciate it until we go to these other places that don't have that clean environment. So it's I totally concur with you. It's so essential to have things in perspective and to broaden. It's important to broaden your perspective in order so you can put your little worries and concerns into that bigger perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And you also see the kids playing in those countries, and the families there are super happy being like a rural farmer or living completely different lives, but they're not tied up with the stresses of trying to run your own business and be a chartered accountant. So you realize that there's still juice of life. There's still happiness everywhere if you choose it.
Yeah, 100%. They find happiness in the real simple things of life. Like, as you said, we can attach it to having certain possessions. And as you said, it provides a temporary sort of dopamine, rush, and but that dissipates. And they're able to find it in the much more simpler things of life, and which are all freely available to us.
Yeah. Yeah. If you choose to, if you choose to think like that, they are.
Sure.
It's easy to get caught up in the other mindset.
That's very true. Very true. When you're brought up in this blessed country of ours. Yeah.
You got billboards screaming at you all the way down the highway.
That's true. Yeah. The commercialism. Yeah. Yeah. So really appreciate you coming on. Respect your time. I know you're a young father and have got a business to run. So thanks for coming on the Joyful Mate podcast. Now, how can the listeners, viewers best connect with you?
I'm fairly active over on LinkedIn, so I post a few times a week there. So Michael Wark, W-A-R-K. You can find me there, and feel free to add a connection there, and we can interact on there. That's probably the best way. Or I run a fractional CFO consulting practice called Trimline, and that's TRIMLANE.co. So that's .co. So those are probably the two main channels they can get in touch.
Excellent. And listeners, viewers, I'll include those links in the show notes so you can go directly to the show notes and connect with Michael. And once again, thank you so much, Michael, for your valuable time and sharing such great wisdom and insights on life and what success can look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be the cliche, and what brings you fulfillment. Really appreciate it, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.